Question number 4, Willie Rennie.
The Scottish Government is opening up more of the economy. Thousands of parents will be returning to work in businesses and shops in June and July. But normal summer childcare, childminders, private nurseries, family and friends are still restricted by the Government. And when schools open in August, children will be at home for up to 4 days a week. It doesn't add up. The First Minister is asking parents to go back to work, but who is going to look after the children? What are parents supposed to do?
First Minister. So the first thing I'd say, not so much to people in the chamber, but to parents watching at home, is that none of this is easy for them. This is incredibly difficult. It has been difficult, and I wish but can't wave a magic wand to make all of these difficulties disappear overnight. What we have to do is work to a plan to allow us to suppress the virus, keep the virus suppressed, and bring all aspects of life back to normal with as much alignment in that as we possibly can. But Willie Rennie's questions are legitimate and important. We have to bring the economy back carefully, and clearly the issues around economic challenges right now, I think understandably encourage people to think we should do that more quickly. We've got to continue to be cautious about that and do that according to the plan we set, and I'll set out the next steps in that tomorrow. But in terms of childcare, we want to see more key workers have access to the critical childcare hubs that we've had in place throughout the crisis, and have them running throughout the summer so that there is more access. It will not be possible for everyone, but so that there is more access. We published this week guidance for early learning and childcare so that we can begin the preparation to get early learning and childcare facilities back, and recognising that even some of the issues we are talking about with schools are even more difficult there. Particularly around physical distancing. But thirdly and lastly, what Willie Rennie described there in terms of schools coming back on the 11th of August is what we are working to try to change the reality of, so that we have children in school, even if it is under the contingency blended model for more than perhaps parents are looking at as a possibility right now, but also to get back to a normal week, schooling week as quickly as we can. So all of these bits of this complex jigsaw need to be in place, and we have to work methodically and very hard to get them in place as quickly, but I'll keep saying this, as safely as possible. Sometimes, and I understand this, as we see the numbers that we report every day going downwards, there is a tendency to think, let's just get back to normal immediately. This virus is dangerous, it is potentially deadly, and it is still out there. And anybody who doubts that in Scotland just has to look at the fact we've still got people dying, but also look at what China are grappling with again, what some parts of America are still grappling with, which even some of the countries that are said to have done best in tackling it are still facing almost on a weekly basis. We have to do this properly, we have to do it right, and we have to do it with public health and safety at the forefront of our thinking.
Willie Rennie.
The First Minister knows I share her caution. I've been constructive throughout this pandemic. But yesterday, the Education Secretary said that if you criticised the policy, you were criticising the teachers. I think that's a shameful insult to thousands of parents with genuine concerns. And the problem is, for the First Minister, is that this is an issue that's coming up next week. People are going back to work next week. They need the support next week. The government have put parents in an impossible position. They cannot choose between their job and their children. The Scottish Government ramped up NHS capacity. It pumped billions of pounds into businesses to keep them alive. But on education, our children and their parents are being left behind. Why does the First Minister not accept that if she is asking parents to return to work, she has an obligation to work out who is going to care for their children?
Minister.
I do recognise that Willie Rennie has been constructive, and I do not criticise anybody for discussing these issues or for asking questions. All I ask, and it's up to people to decide whether they want to proceed on this basis, is for people, which I think Willie Rennie has generally done, recognise that these issues are not straightforward. And it's not the government that's putting parents in an impossible position. It's not any government that's doing that. It is a global health pandemic that is putting people in an impossible position that we have to try and mitigate and help them work their way through. And that's exactly what we will seek to do. We have to do that cautiously, because we cannot allow the virus to run away with us again and get a grip again, but we have to do it methodically as well and try to keep these pieces in line as far as possible. And that's what we will seek to do. I will not say to any parent or teacher or anybody else across the country anything other than this is incredibly difficult for them each and every single day. What I would say to Willie Rennie is I don't think it's correct to characterise it as something that's coming up next week. This is something parents and others have been living with right throughout this crisis because of the reality of the situation we're dealing with. And this is not about, as I said earlier on, it's not about an unwillingness to make resources available. It's about using resources properly to get the country, including schools, back to normal in a way that is sensible and doesn't put the health of children or others at risk. And that's what we will continue to prioritise.